Everybody hurts. Everybody gets tired. Everybody hits that moment when quitting feels like the only option. But some give up, and others keep going. Some break down, and others toughen up. Some disappear, while others, they grow. Why? What's the difference? It's not genetics, not privilege, not luck. It's one habit. The habit of staying in the game. The habit of not backing down when the pain becomes unbearable. The habit of not stopping, even when you're running on empty. This isn't just discipline, it's deeper. It's a principle, a life code. I don't leave. It's planted deep, like roots in the earth. And when the wind knocks everyone else over, these are the ones who stay standing. Not because it's easier, but because they gave themselves no other option. Winners aren't different because they never feel exhausted. They break too, they hurt too. But they have one strategy that always brings them back to the fight. They don't associate fatigue with permission to quit. Fatigue to them is not the end. It's a signal to reset, a challenge, not a defeat. While most people use exhaustion as an excuse, they see it as proof. Proof they're getting close. Proof they're on the edge. And that's exactly why they don't give up. They've trained themselves to go through the wall, not just up to it. Not once. Not twice. Every single time. That's their habit. That's their identity. And that one habit is what makes them unstoppable. They don't chase comfort. They chase meaning. And once they find it, they become the kind of people who cannot be stopped. There are two types of people. Some, when they feel tired, slow down. They start second-guessing. Was I too early? Is this even my path? They look for reasons to quit with dignity, with no shame, with no responsibility. And then there are the others, the ones we later call champions. They do the opposite. In the moment of fatigue, when there's nothing left in the tank, they trigger their most powerful process, the internal reset. They don't ignore fatigue, but they don't bow down to it either. They accept it and turn it into fuel. It's not a romantic act, it's a skill. A learned, sharpened habit forged in dozens of battles. And at its core, staying. Even when you can't win, even when everything's against you, even when your heart says stop, they answer back no, not yet. This habit isn't born when life is easy. It's born on those mornings you don't want to get up, in those workouts that feel pointless, in the silence when everyone's gone and you stayed. That's where your core is formed, steady, irrational, unbreakable. And when the real storm hits, that core is what keeps you on your feet. The best don't keep going because they have more energy. They fall too. But they live by a mindset. Falling isn't the end of the road. It's part of the journey. And every time they rise, that mindset gets deeper, stronger, less dependent on emotions, circumstances, or anyone's opinion. This isn't just a habit. It's an unshakable pact with yourself. I don't leave the game until it's over. I don't quit while I can still breathe. And that's what makes the strong unstoppable. Fatigue isn't a signal to fail. It's proof of effort. It's the price of progress. But most people see it as a sentence. They believe that once they're tired, it's time to stop. Champions think differently. When fatigue shows up, they think, good, I'm on the right path. I'm moving forward. I'm no longer where I started. That mindset isn't natural. It's cultivated in thousands of quiet moments where you could have stopped but didn't, where you could have given in but stayed. And the more of those moments you collect, the more solid your inner belief becomes. I can endure anything. That belief, it's not fantasy. It's forged in sweat, in pain, in sleepless nights. It's real because it's earned through action. Winners don't ignore fatigue. They work with it. They know how to shift gears. They know how to slow down without stopping, how to give themselves space without leaving the fight. That's mastery. That's resilience. Moving forward with no illusions, no emotion, just movement. And this is where one of the most powerful habits is born. Staying in motion when you feel absolutely nothing, when the spark is long gone, when it's just rhythm, repetition, routine. But those simple, stubborn daily movements, they create a force that no longer needs motivation. It moves on its own. Here's a truth only the truly tired understand. You are stronger than you think, but you'll never feel that strength until you go further than you want to, until you stay when your body begs you to stop, and your mind is crafting 1,000 excuses. The best don't keep going because they feel good. They keep going because they've learned one thing. Limits are an illusion. Behind every "I can't go any further," there are 10, 20, 100 steps of power you haven't used yet. They don't believe the first wave of exhaustion. They push through it and discover there's more inside them. And every time they cross that threshold, they grow, they evolve. This doesn't mean ignoring your limits. It means seeing yourself truthfully, not as something fragile that breaks on first contact, but as a machine, powerful, tested, capable of more than you imagine. And the more you prove that to yourself through action, the less power temporary fatigue holds. It stops being a wall. It becomes part of the path. That's the real habit of champions. When the edge shows up, they don't back off. They shift gears. They activate survival mode, resilience mode, presence mode. They do while others collapse. And that's why they win. Because victory most of the time has nothing to do with strength or talent. It has everything to do with who stayed in the fight longest, who took one more hit, one more step, when everyone else was done. That skill, it's not magic, it's born of one habit. The habit of staying in the game, through fatigue, through pain, through everything. One habit, one simple, unbreakable agreement with yourself. I stay. And that single agreement makes you undefeatable. It's stronger than emotion, stronger than pain, stronger than fatigue, stronger than logic, stronger than fear. When you train yourself not to leave the game, even when every part of you wants out, you rewrite your identity. You're no longer someone who listens to the tired voice in your head or the aching in your body. You act from principle, from decision, from that inner core that doesn't bend to short-term urges. The hardest part, it's surviving that razor-thin moment when the thought creeps in, enough. That voice always sounds reasonable. It promises relief. It whispers, you've done enough. But the truth, just beyond that voice, is your breakthrough. That's where your new strength begins. Your new depth, your new scale. Winners don't win because they feel strong. They win when the strength is gone and they're still moving. That's the moment your old self dies and your new one is born. Not during a celebration, not in a motivational speech, in silence, in sweat, in a step no one sees, but one that changes everything. So if you want to know why the best don't give up when they're exhausted, the answer is simple. They trained themselves to stay. One habit, one choice. You either build it or you stay a prisoner to short-term comfort. The world belongs to those who stay. There's a line only a few ever cross. The line of self-pity. When the pain rolls in like waves, when exhaustion wraps around your bones, when you feel like you've given everything, that's when the voice starts whispering, you deserve a break, a pause, a way out. And that voice, it sounds so gentle, so kind. It promises you the easy road. It pulls you back to your comfort zone. But champions, they've learned to recognize that voice. They know it's not their friend. It's not self-love. It's surrender. It's quitting, disguised as care. One habit saves them. Staying. No negotiating with weakness. No listening to doubt in moments of pain. Keep moving. Not because it feels good, but because the decision was already made. I finish. I follow through. The best don't avoid fatigue. They accept it as part of the contract. The price of playing a bigger game. They understand exhaustion doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're growing. It means you're pushing beyond your limits. It means the real test has begun. Not of the body, but of the will. People who quit, they're not always physically weaker. They're mentally weaker. They let short-term pain cancel long-term purpose. They trade completion for relief. That's why their dreams never make it past words. Winners chose differently. Their habit is going through. Not quickly, sometimes slowly, barely moving, but moving, always. Because walking while exhausted, that's what builds real power. That's what turns good into great. So when the world blurs with pain, when the heart sounds the alarm, when When the body begs to stop, they return to what they already decided. One more step, one more action, one more breath, toward motion. And that is the moment destiny begins to shift. The world applauds those who endured, but it rarely sees how many times they broke on the way. Real champions aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who learned how to rise. When rising felt impossible, they don't let themselves stay down, because one habit drives them. Staying in motion. That habit is more than willpower. It's identity. A person says to themselves, I'm the one who finishes. I don't walk away from what I've started. And that belief becomes their internal code. Fatigue, it's no longer a reason to stop. It's just another environment to pass through. Most people don't give up because they physically can't. They give up because they let exhaustion make the decision. They confuse discomfort with the need to quit. They tell themselves, I'm tired, so I've earned the right to stop. And that's where they lose everything they worked for. Champions think differently. In the critical moment, they don't ask, should I stop? They ask, can I take one more step? And if the answer even whispers yes, they keep walking, and walking, and walking. They're not chasing comfort. They're chasing mission. True resilience is born not in one grand battle, but in 1,000 tiny wars with yourself. When every argument for quitting sounds convincing, and you choose to go a little further anyway, fatigue is temporary. You can't escape it on the path to something great. But the habit of staying turns fatigue from your enemy into your ally. It teaches you this. Every time you think you've reached your limit, you've only reached it. You haven't passed it yet. And only the habit of continuing pushes that line further. That's the great secret of the elite. They train themselves to see fatigue not as a stop sign, but as a guidepost. When you're truly worn down, life hands you a choice that changes everything. Surrender to short-term relief, or commit to long-term victory. It's a choice between comfort and power. And right there, in that choice, one habit separates champions from everyone else. The habit of staying in the game, no matter what. The world loves to paint champions as superhuman, but that's not true. They hurt too. They get scared. They have moments where they want to give up. The difference: they don't make decisions based on emotion. They make decisions based on principle, on a promise they made to themselves. I don't walk away without a fight, not until I know there's nothing left to give. That mindset, it changes everything. It removes fatigue's power to decide when your journey ends. It puts the control back in your hands. Fatigue exists, pain exists, fear exists, but the decision to stay, that belongs to you. And this is where a new level of self is born. You realize, it's not the ones who started strong that win. It's the ones who learned to keep going when the energy was gone, when the emotional highs faded, when it wasn't about running, it was about crawling, slowly, painfully, but forward. The biggest breakthrough, it comes after this phase. Because while others choose to stop, you choose to stay. And that's when the first real sign of transformation appears. New endurance, deeper self-belief, a stronger awareness of your own strength. Don't expect the world to cheer for you in that moment. The applause will come later, when you finish. For now, it's just you, and your habit of staying. And that habit changes everything. There's a moment no one warns you about. A moment when even the strongest hands begin to shake. When even the most committed start to doubt. When it feels like your whole path was a mistake. Like all the effort was for nothing. This is the dark night of the soul. And in that night, the unbreakable are forged. Quotes won't help. Speeches won't help. Only one thing will. A small, quiet habit staying. Just holding on. Not making decisions in exhaustion. Not believing the voice of a tired mind. Giving yourself the order, I stay, until the end. I stare this night in the face. The best, they don't avoid doubt. They know it better than anyone. But they have one rule. Doubt doesn't cancel commitment. Fear doesn't cancel mission. Fatigue doesn't cancel purpose. Only surrender cancels. And that, they don't allow. That critical moment, that's where real character is born. Most people live in slavery to short-term feelings. It gets hard, they switch direction. It gets uncomfortable, they stop. It gets scary, they run. But champions, they face the pain, the discomfort, the fear, and they stay. And through that, they grow. Through that, they become who they were meant to be. Doesn't matter how much it hurts right now. What matters is if you can stay present, because pain will pass, fear will fade, fatigue will lift. But your decision to stay, that stays with you forever, and it changes everything. Your self-worth, your destiny, your results. This is how the habit of staying forges you, not by making you invulnerable, but by making you strong despite your vulnerability. And once you're there, no matter what happens, you never go back to who you used to be. You won't become unbreakable overnight. Not in a week, not in a month. Real strength is born slowly, in hundreds of tiny moments where you could have quit but didn't. When every part of you screamed enough, and you whispered back, just a little more. This isn't a romantic process. It's dirty, it's heavy, it's monotonous work inside yourself. It's a path with no spotlights, no fanfare, no quick rewards. But this path builds something that can't be taken away. True strength. Not the kind you read about in bios, the kind you see in your movements, in your words, in your daily choice to stay, where others choose to flee. Champions aren't necessarily faster, stronger, smarter. They're more consistent, more enduring, more loyal to who they said they'd be. And that loyalty, it only shows up in battle with weakness. In moments where you want to throw it all away, but instead, you rise. Again, you walk. Again, you prove again that you're stronger than fear, than fatigue, than excuses. When you train yourself to stay in the game till the end, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop dreaming of easy wins. You start to understand the greatest things in life come through pain, through exhaustion, through staying power. And here's the truth. You won't win every time, and you don't need to. But if you learn to stay, even when everything inside you says quit, you've already won. Because real victory, it's not about never falling. It's about never letting the fall be your finish. There comes a moment when ordinary people quit. It's not when opportunities run out. It's not when obstacles arise. They quit when their emotional fuel runs dry, when motivation fades, when the goal feels too far and the pain far too close. That's when the question creeps in. Is this worth it? Wouldn't it be easier to go back? And right there, you see the difference between a passing interest and a deep burning purpose. The best don't rely on inspiration. They don't base their actions on feelings. They chose the path and they walk it no matter what mood they're in. They're not moved by emotional waves. They are moved by a principle: I stay until it's done. One habit makes them unbeatable. It's the ability to act after motivation dies. When all that's left is emptiness, when only raw will remains. And every time they cross that threshold, they get stronger. Every time they act without emotional backup, they drive another stake into the foundation of their unbreakable core. There's no celebration in this process, no applause, no quick wins. It's the grind in the shadows, in silence, in your personal darkness where it's just you and the promise you made to yourself. And it's that silence that forges the ones the world later calls legends. Because you don't become unstoppable when things go well. You become unstoppable when everything falls apart and you still stand, when there's no strength left but you keep moving, when no one supports you but you continue anyway. And the more moments like that you survive, the more of that unshakable weight you carry, the kind you can't buy or fake. Everybody wants victory, but almost no one wants to endure the road to it. Because real growth doesn't look like a steady rise. It looks like a battlefield, an endless war, with yourself, your fear, your exhaustion, your invisible inner enemies. Those who truly become great understand this one truth. You cannot trust your mood. Your mood lies. It shifts with the weather, the news, a bad night's sleep, your doubts, other people's opinions. If you base your life on mood, your life will be random, controlled by everything except you. So winners build a different strategy. Instead of waiting for the right mood, they train themselves to act without it. Feeling bad? Act. Tired? Act. Unsure? Because action is the only compass that doesn't lie. It guides you even when you feel nothing at all, and sometimes that's when it guides you best. That's where the habit that makes them unbeatable takes shape. They don't wait for inspiration. They create it through motion. They don't lean on emotional highs. They lean on a decision they made long ago. I will see this through. While others hesitate, they move. While others hesitate, they move. While others wonder if it's worth it, they're already taking the next step. And over time, those steps create the difference no one can catch. Not one-time breakthroughs, but consistent action, especially when emotional fuel runs out. So next time you feel empty, next time the fatigue paralyzes you, next time your hands start to drop, remember this moment is your forge. Right now you either break or become unbreakable, and only you decide which. You know what shocks most people when they chase something great. It's not the struggle, not the criticism, not the failures. It's the monotony, the silence, the grinding repetition of daily exhausting unnoticed effort, with no applause, no recognition, not even inner fire. And it's in that silence most people disappear. They thought the journey would feel like a movie, that pain would be dramatic and triumph heroic. But reality looks different. Morning after morning, hour by hour, you just show up and do your work. Not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. The great ones stay right there in the ordinary. They don't chase drama. They build their strength in the gray. That's why they rise. Because they stayed where others lost meaning. They don't search for motivation. They build an internal engine. And that engine? It's a habit to act without needing feelings. That habit doesn't come on its own. It needs reps, daily proof. Like a muscle, it grows as you train it, until a new mental formula kicks in. Don't ask how you feel, ask what needs to be done, then do it. That formula becomes your armor. It doesn't make you invincible, but it makes you unstoppable. Because even when fatigue swallows your thoughts, action remains, and from that, everything flows. Action sparks movement. Movement builds momentum, and soon you're moving, not because you feel like it, but because you trained yourself not to stop. That's why winners don't quit. Not because they always have energy, but because even without it, they keep walking. Every great victory looks glamorous on the outside, but inside it's messy, tired, and slow. Success is not a smooth rise. It's a brutal fight with yourself, with laziness, with pain, with disappointment. It's you alone in a room. No one hears your doubt, your fight to not walk away, and it's right there the one who never quits is born. People love to see the tip of the iceberg, the medals, the outcomes, the praise. But most couldn't last a week under what's beneath that surface. Exhaustion without applause, battle without an audience, daily effort with no obvious reward. Winners accept that reality. They don't seek easy days, they seek steady growth. They live by a principle. Today will be hard and I'll do it anyway. That principle is their shield, their anchor, their noise-canceling filter against the world. Because when you do hard things daily, the world no longer controls you. It can't break you with a comment, exhaust you with criticism, seduce you with comfort. Your identity no longer sits outside. It's built on one habit, to keep going when others stop. That doesn't mean being harsh with yourself. It means respecting yourself enough not to accept being less than you are. It means knowing fatigue is not forever, but the habit of staying, that shapes what lasts. And from that habit, a new level is born, not just of self, of strength, quiet strength, the kind that's invisible until the storm hits, and then everyone around sees it. This one will not break. When you're tired, you see the world differently. Shadows grow larger, problems sharper, doubts louder, and the most dangerous thing you can do in that moment is to confuse fatigue with truth. To think those heavy feelings are real, that if today is hard, you're on the wrong path, that if it feels empty, it's all pointless. That's where the strongest habit of the unbeatable shows up. They don't listen to themselves when tired. They act on decisions made when they were strong. And that loyalty to self, that's the highest form of strength, because it's not based on mood, it's built on honor, on a promise, on dignity. You don't need to be inspired to change your life. You need to be loyal, loyal to yourself, loyal to the decision, loyal to the path you chose in clarity, not emotion. This isn't a love story, it's war. And winners are those who walk it to the end, even when the soul is quiet, even when the body screams. When you train yourself to stay, something deep awakens in you. It doesn't shout, but it's undeniable. You start to feel it. I can trust myself. And that changes everything. That's your foundation, your armor, your inner anchor that won't break even under pressure. And in the end, it's not about what you do when things are easy. It's about who you become when they're not. Because it's in those moments the unstoppable are made. The habit of staying, it's not about heroism, it's about silence. It's about those mornings when you wake up with no energy, no clarity, no applause. It's about those nights when the day ends feeling like nothing has changed, yet you still show up. It's these days, not bright, not triumphant, that build your real strength. Everybody wants to feel energized. Everyone dreams of flow, of ease, of inspiration. But here's the truth most people ignore. The deepest transformations don't happen in bursts of inspiration. They happen in the grind, the tired, the slow, the hopeless. Right there where others quit, you're laying the foundation of your future. This is the moment to remember, you're not just working on a task, you're working on yourself. Every action you take while tired is an investment, not in efficiency but in resilience, in becoming the kind of person who moves not because of circumstances, but despite them. And that's the person who wins the big game, not the one who started loud and proud, but the one who didn't disappear, the one who kept going, the one who didn't drop the sword when the inside went quiet. And the more of those days you survive, the deeper your self-mastery becomes, because fatigue fades. But the habit of staying, it grows. And if you act today, when quitting feels easier, tomorrow you wake up different, stronger, closer to yourself, closer to a power no passerby will ever notice. But everyone near you will feel. Most people think they lack talent, that they don't reach their goals because they're missing some ability, some skill, or some resource. But the truth is simpler. They lack one thing, the ability to stay. When it gets boring, when it gets hard, when the world isn't cheering, that's when most people leave. Not because they can't go on, but because they've been trained to obey their fatigue. Winners live by a different code. Their system doesn't run on emotion, it runs on structure. And at its core is one rule: I finish, not I'll try, not as long as it's going well. I see it through. What gives someone this kind of stability? Not motivation. Motivation is emotional, fleeting, conditional. It might be gone tomorrow. But discipline, multiplied by the habit of staying, becomes your inner foundation. The real breakthrough happens when you stop debating with yourself about whether to act. You just act. Because that's your new normal. Because it's no longer an act of heroism, it's just who you are. Yes, there will be fatigue. Yes, there will be resistance. But you will stay. And that consistency, that's what makes you great. Because life isn't built on the highs, it's built on the lows you endure. On the days when you want to hide, but you move. When you want silence, but you create. When you want to quit, but you finish. That's your power. The world belongs to those who can stay when nothing is on fire. When there's no thrill, when only motion remains. Raw, heavy, repetitive. But inside that motion is pure gold. We're taught to search for meaning in big words, in grand goals, in massive plans. But the truth, the deepest meaning hides in action with no shine, in daily stubborn, pointless continuation. When no one sees you, no one believes in you, and even you start to wonder if there's any logic left. But it's in that empty stretch, when nothing seems to change, that everything begins to change. You start to grow, not outwardly but inwardly. You shift from wanting to achieve to becoming. You stop chasing victory and become the victor. quietly, consistently, without ceremony. And that's the paradox of power. It's strongest when it's invisible. When you keep going anyway, not for a prize, not for an audience, just because this is yours, because you no longer know how to quit. It's a state where fatigue is no longer the enemy, but the teacher. It shows you where your limits are, and then offers you the chance to move them. After every hard day you choose to stay, something inside you expands. More space, more grounding, more belief, not fed by the world, but built from you. That belief, it's not some fantasy. It's the kind of faith that comes from action. Because you know I stayed when others left. I stayed in the emptiness, in the pain, in the fatigue, and I didn't break. And here's what matters most, that strength, it stays. It doesn't vanish with time. It doesn't depend on the world. It becomes your character. And when the next storm rolls in, you won't be looking for something to grab. Because your anchor is already inside. You are the one who stays. The choice, the greatest strength, is when you no longer need an audience. When you do what you do, not because someone's waiting for results. Not because someone cheers you on, but because you simply can't do it any other way. It's no longer strategy. It's your truth. Your silence. In that silence, there's no fanfare, no soundtrack. But there is clarity, and in that clarity, in that tired, meaningless feeling, you give birth to a new kind of self-respect. Because you didn't betray yourself, you didn't run, you didn't sell out for a moment of relief. When others retreat because it's too hard, you stay, not for anyone else, for yourself. And in that act lies your greatest victory, not loud, not fast, but worthy. And every one of those victories piles up like drops of steel in your bones until you become heavy, not exhausted, unshakable. This habit of staying, it's not just mental discipline, it's an act of love. For yourself, for your mission, for who you're becoming. And like all real love, it doesn't wait for the perfect moment, it asks for everything, but it gives you everything too. You get tired but you don't leave. You hurt but you hold the line. And each time you stop fearing that state, it becomes familiar, and what's familiar stops being scary. Now you can be in the fatigue, in the fight, in the pressure, and still not fall. You've learned to be in the storm without breaking. And it's in that state, steady, mature, unseen, that the unstoppable is forged. Not because he's fearless, but because he stayed through the fear, through the fatigue, through it all. You won't see it on magazine covers, the most important thing that makes someone unbeatable. It's not photogenic. It can't be measured in followers or income. But it's the deciding fact. It's the habit of staying when the whole world whispers, stop. It's the silence where greatness is born. It begins when others have already quit. When you stand alone, with no motivation, no spotlight, just one thought, I'm staying anyway. And that thought, it's not weakness, it's the highest form of life control. Because in that moment you're free, not free from hardship, free from needing to escape it. True winners don't arrive at the moment of glory, they're forged in the dark, in exhausted nights, in mornings you don't want to begin, in processes with no guarantees, but with one thing inside, a word you gave to yourself. And that word, it's sacred. If you don't betray it, it becomes your anchor. It's no longer emotion. It's part of your being, and even when your strength falls, you don't, because you don't stand on strength. You stand on your word, your decision, the habit you carved in sweat and action. So if you want to become someone no storm can break, forget the hype. Build one habit, the habit of staying, in exhaustion, in doubt, in silence. And when the world doesn't see it, you will feel it. I'm not the same anymore. Because the one who stays always reaches the finish. The habit of staying, it's not about endurance, it's about identity. At some point, you stop seeing yourself as someone who's just making an effort. You start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't leave, who doesn't back down. Not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you chose this road, and that's your pride, that's your weight, that's your truth. People often think winners are just the lucky ones. But in reality, winners are those who proved it. The stories we admire, the ones that inspire us, they're built from moments when the hero didn't break, when they were alone, when they had no certainty, but they had one thing, a decision. And that decision, it's stronger than everything else. That's why one habit changes everything. When it becomes part of you, you can't imagine living any other way. You stop doubting your ability to finish because you've already walked through yourself. And that's the hardest battle, but also the most precious. Those who give up often live with a shadow afterward, not because they couldn't do it, but because they stopped halfway. And that pause, that unfinished business, it stays with them. But when you stay, even in the darkest points, you fill yourself with something else, something solid, unshakable, a confidence that can't be given to you because it was born from you. There are things that can't be bought, borrowed, or copied. One of them is inner weight. It's not in money, it's not in knowledge, it's not in words. It's in the actions you took when no one believed, when it was just you and the choice, quit or continue. In a world hungry for instant results, in a world demanding constant fire, the strongest person is the one who can live in the quiet, who doesn't fall into the void, who stays when answers don't come. Your decision to stay today, maybe it won't bring a quick result. Maybe it'll only bring another hard evening, but it will be another brick in your real home. Not a facade, not a highlight reel, but the real structure of you. Here's the real truth. Your habit of staying, it's not just about projects, careers, or goals. It's about who you are. It's about keeping your word to yourself. And that's what builds a person you can lean on. Someone who doesn't fall at the first push. Someone who stands not for show but out of dignity. This state, it isn't built on emotions. No event can grant it to you. It's built in every tired, I'll do it anyway. Every I can't, but I will. Every I'm scared, but I'm going. And when enough of those decisions stack up, you don't just become a hero. You become a rock. Your real victory, it's not medals. It's not status. It's the moment you look in the mirror and see not doubt, not regret, not unfinished business, but pure confidence, calm, unshakable. Because you know, I stayed. I went through it. I didn't betray myself. Everyone chasing something big eventually hits the moment where all the fire burns out. Dreams lose their shine. Goals feel unreachable. And then one question remains. Who am I without all of that? That's where the real choice happens. To stop or to become someone new. The best they endured. They aren't stronger. They're deeper. They aren't stronger. They're deeper. They didn't look for easy answers. They acted because they promised. And that promise, that's their roots. It holds them in the storm. Because when the fire is gone, when everything has dimmed, it's the roots that keep you standing, not the leaves, not the flowers. That's why the habit of staying, it's not a strategy. It's not a tool. It's your character. It doesn't just create results. It builds dignity. The way you held on in the dark, that's how you'll stand when the light comes. The way you moved without applause, that's how you'll endure when they finally cheer. Don't fool yourself with the fantasy of an easy road. Don't mistake a spark of motivation for a deep decision. If you truly want change, stay. Don't seek inspiration. Seek your anchor. Let it be your I will finish. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today, now. Because every today I stay is another nail in the foundation of someone who will not be broken. You've come far, and still, sometimes it feels like it's not enough, like something's been lost, something's unfinished. That's when the biggest temptation shows up, to ease off the pressure, to choose the easy way, to stop and tell yourself, I did everything I could. But the truth, you're not there yet. There's still one more mile. One more stretch. The hardest, the quietest, the most brutal. And in that mile, that's where the real separation happens. Between those who walked and those who finished. The last mile is cruel. It hits when there's nothing left. When your body's drained, when your head is filled with doubt, when your heart feels cold. It's the moment when even the strongest hesitate. But right here is your real test. Not of skill, but of faith, of depth, of the simple truth that you said I will finish, and now you will prove it. The world won't see all the pain you endured. It won't see the moments you stayed when everyone else quit. But it will see your result, and that result will have weight, not because it's flashy, but because you built it through exhaustion, through silence, through solitude. Staying through the last mile, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's the most sacred. It's the mile with no cheers, no witnesses. It's the mile walked with your heart, and it's the one that makes you unstoppable. This isn't a finish line, it's a transformation, because after that last mile you are not the same, and neither is your world. If you're tired today, remember this is not the end. This is the initial. This is life asking you, do you really want this? Are you really ready to pay the price beyond comfort, beyond doubt, beyond fatigue? And your answer, it's not in words, it's in movement, in one more step, in one more hour of effort, in one more decision to stay, even when everything inside you screams, stop. One habit staying changes everything. Not ideas, not talent, not perfect circumstances. That one simple, indestructible act. Staying in the game when there's no light, no certainty, no support. Because real support, it's you, your decision, your motion, your word to yourself. Winners don't push through because it's easy. They push through because they know real victory starts after exhaustion, after pain, after the last barrier that seemed impossible. And here you are, on the edge of your old self. Ahead of you, only two paths: retreat or break through. Stay or disappear. So whatever you're feeling right now, remember, one action changes everything. One more step, one more move, one more decision to stay. And because of that decision, one day you'll wake up and realize, I became who I dreamed of becoming. Not by miracle, by daily staying.